One thing that a lot of fans have been trying to figure out ever since the events of Star Wars The Force Awakens has all to do with Rey's lineage. This is Mike Zero here. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, in case you guys didn't know, there is a reason as to why Rey, as of right now, still doesn't have a last name to this day. And apparently it all has to do with Disney and Lucasfilm, not quite for certain here on exactly who Rey is connected to in the Star Wars franchise. So that's one of the big reasons as to why she still doesn't have a last name, a surname, in the Star Wars franchise, is because Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams and crew, at the time of The Force Awakens, and even with Rian Johnson, I guess, they still didn't have an overall idea of exactly who she is going to be in this world. So, looking at Star Wars Episode 9, a lot of people have been bringing up her being related to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and there's a lot of ways that they could make this work. Now, a lot of people have been saying, could she be Obi-Wan Kenobi's daughter? I've said this numerous times that that's pretty much impossible given, the age difference and the gap between two eras. So the only way to really make it work between both Rey and Kenobi is to have her be the granddaughter of Obi-Wan. But exactly how could they really make this work? Well, the only way that they could make it work is if at some point in time Obi-Wan Kenobi had a relation with somebody else. He had a relationship with somebody else, and he had a child, and then that child grew up to have another child, and that was, of course, Rey. Now, that would then only make things a little bit complicated in, of course, what was told in The Last Jedi, unless Kylo Ren was lying to Rey, that her parents are nobody and they just sold her off for drinking money, and that her father's buried under the surface of Jakku. The thing that does strike me, though, is that there is a deep reason as to why we do hear Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice in The Force Awakens during that Force-back vision sequence. I believe that the shocking way of making this work between both Rey being related to Obi-Wan Kenobi is to look at that material, that canon material within The Force Awakens. The fact that Obi-Wan is reaching out to Rey. Why is Obi-Wan, of all people, reaching out to Rey? The first Force-sensitive individual that is actually contacting Rey, at least mentally, during the Force vision. And it's also assumed to be in the past tense because he says, Rey, these are your first steps. Either he's talking to her during the vision is taking place, or Rey is actually recalling a certain event from the past that's going through her head. Kind of similar to what we heard when Yoda is actually saying in the Force-back vision, it's energy, it's energy. You hear that repeatedly. That's a line from The Empire Strikes Back. And then you hear Luke Skywalker saying, no, no. And then at the very end, we hear Obi-Wan saying, Rey, these are your first steps, indicating that this is indeed in the past tense, just as Yoda and Luke's voices were in that vision sequence in The Force Awakens. So the way that they could really make it work is by harnessing that very moment in The Force Awakens in which we do hear Obi-Wan's voice, which by the way was a mixture of both Ewan McGregor and Sir Alec Guinness. And I think that can't just be left unanswered. It has to be answered as to why Obi-Wan was reaching out to Rey in that movie. Now, I know a lot of you guys out there are probably saying, her being related to Kenobi is an awful idea. It makes no sense at all, and we should just leave things be and have her be a nobody. But to me, I feel like that making her a very special character in the Star Wars universe and connected to an already very well-known Star Wars character in the franchise, I think would honestly make it all the more interesting for the concept of Rey as a total here, of her character. So, with her being connected to Kenobi, not only would it explain as to why she's able to do the Jedi mind trick, but it also explains as to why she's so powerful within the Force. Maybe there's more to the story than we already know, that JJ and Chris Terrio are really trying to set up in Star Wars Episode 9. And after all, JJ and Chris are really trying to find ways in order to not only connect this film to the prequel trilogy, but also to the original trilogy. And what better way to connect it to the originals from, of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi being a major part of all three movies, and having his part in Star Wars Episode 9, and have him actually be the grandfather of Rey. Personally, I like the idea, the whole entire concept of maybe her parents are nobodies and they're not all that important, but maybe the big misdirect is that, yes, her parents aren't important, but that doesn't have to say anything about grandparents, right? Her grandparents could be of significance in Star Wars Episode 9. I would love to hear your opinions about all of this below in the comments. It's a very interesting discussion for sure. We do know that J.J. Abrams is changing Rey to a certain extent in Star Wars Episode 9. He is going to be giving her a very important lineage that will be emotionally satisfying for the Star Wars franchise. And honestly, I do have faith in J.J. I hope that he pulls it off right, and I'm really crossing my fingers here. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.